This podcast is for general information only. It is not intended as a substitute for general healthcare services. If you have medical conditions, you need to see your doctor. Use of this information is at the user's own risk. Welcome to FitRx with Dr. Greg Dennis. Join me as we challenge the standard sick model of healthcare. This is your source for everything health, wellness, prevention, fitness, biohacking, and more. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of FitRx. I'm your host, Dr. Greg Dennis. If you listen to this podcast, you know I love talking about just anti-aging type strategies and everything that revolves around that. And so my next guest is Dr. Nick Bitz. He is a naturopathic physician who specializes in integrative medicine. He is also the Senior Vice President and Product Development at Neurohacker Collective, which we will kind of talk about that and what some certain products they have. His areas of expertise include nootropics, anti-aging, and Ayurveda medicine. I always have problems saying that word. Dr. Bitz, welcome to the show.
All right. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Well, tell us, if you will, just talk about more kind of what you do, how you got into kind of the anti-aging space.
Yeah, I mean, it was a roundabout way. You know, I was always on the path to go into traditional medical school, and was always moving down that path. But I had a health injury at a fairly young age, and was really forced to heal myself. And so in doing so, I sought out a lot of these quote unquote alternative medicines, these Eastern philosophies, and applied them to myself. And it really got me interested in traditional Chinese medicine, in Ayurveda, which comes from India, and then yoga and these other Eastern philosophies and alternative forms of medicine that I then applied those philosophies, those tools in my own life. And it really pushed me out of conventional medicine into more of an Eastern slant. And so I discovered what's called naturopathic medicine, which is an old time of medicine here in the US. It predates our conventional medicine that we currently call allopathic medicine in the States. And it has a resurgence as of late. People are more interested in these natural therapies. And so I applied to a school called Bastyr University up in Seattle, which is one of the biggest and longest standing naturopathic medical schools in the nation. And there I just really plugged into holistic health, and in particular Ayurveda. And the thing that really captured me from the Ayurvedic philosophy and the Ayurvedic paradigm was their philosophy around longevity and what you can do to extend your health span, extend your lifespan. They're very simple, but very effective tools. And so that really opened my eyes in terms of what is anti-aging medicine and how can you relay a lot of these old therapies into something new. And so I like to blend a lot of these old with the new. And so in part, I think that's one of the things we're going to talk about today, which is this idea of cell senescence, which is, I believe, the most cutting edge of aging medicine right now. And I think it's going to be the future of healthy aging.
Very good. Before we dive into that, you study a lot about just aging in general. And so you have talked about the hallmarks of aging. My listeners, I'm sure, have heard some of this, but just talk a minute about what some of those hallmarks of aging are.
Yeah, happy to. I did listen to your podcast. I listened to one with Greg McPherson, who did an excellent job describing the 9 hallmarks. The hallmarks of aging really are fundamental to our philosophy and the science of aging as we know it right now. You know, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of theories about why we age, but really not one can fully nor comprehensively really explain the aging process. And so because of that, scientists will often combine these theories together to create these larger theories. And so the hallmarks of aging is just that. It's these 9 different theories embodied as one. And it comes from this landmark 2013 paper. It's probably the most cited article on aging today that really describes these 9 mechanisms of aging. And the hallmarks aren't diseases per se. They're really the underlying processes that lead to aging in the human body. And right now there are 9, but there was a conference overseas in March, I believe, and they discussed adding even 5 more. So they're looking at, as an example, inflammation as a potential new hallmark, and microbiome disturbances as a potential hallmark. So it's an evolving model, but it's the best that we have. And it really combines these together to say, like, really, these are the main drivers of aging in the human body.
Again, my listeners should have heard most of those, but if you will, and we could spend a whole episode on each one, but kind of summarize those, just kind of give us a review, if you will, of what are the hallmarks of aging.
Yeah, so there's 9 of them, as I mentioned. The first one's genomic instability, and that's just basically means that there is some kind of instability within your genome, which can lead to cellular damage over time. The second one is telomere attrition, which just means a shortening of the telomeres. And telomeres are the caps on your DNA that keep the integrity of the DNA over time. And every time that a cell replicates, it gets shorter and shorter and shorter. And it eventually reaches such a short length that the cell stops replicating. So we think that telomeres really are the kind of inner clock of cells, and it keeps time for cells. And so we know that cells will replicate on average about 50 times before they stop replicating. And primarily that's due to that shortening of the telomeres. And then you have epigenetic alterations. These are changes in like methylation and signaling, and it's really how you express your DNA based upon these environmental exposures or factors. You have loss of proteostasis, which is basically just a loss of protein function and protein stability, which leads to a compromised cell overall. You have deregulated nutrient sensing. You have mitochondrial dysfunction. You have stem cell exhaustion. You have a change in intracellular communication. And then the last one that I would love to dig into a little bit more is known as cellular senescence. And that, I believe, is really the cutting edge aspect of aging right now. And it's where a lot of companies, whether they're pharmaceutical or biotech or even dietary supplement companies, they're putting a lot of emphasis on this specific hallmark, because it's something that we're discovering you can go in and you can make pretty significant changes using certain tools.
Okay. Well, thank you for that review. So tell us, let's just start from the beginning about senescence. Just kind of describe what that is and then how that relates to aging.
Yeah, so senescence comes from a Latin word senex, that means to grow old. And so cellular senescence then is really your cell growing old. And it's in the literature, it's defined as the process by which cells accrue damage and eventually stop dividing. And so when a cell stops dividing, that is that moment of senescence. That cell becomes a quote unquote senescent cell in the body. And these things are normal. It's a part of healthy physiology. We are constantly creating senescent cells, and we're constantly eliminating senescent cells. And so cellular senescence isn't inherently good nor bad, but it can become problematic, especially when these non-dividing, non-functioning cells stick around in tissues throughout our body for an extended amount of time. And that becomes really the process of aging. It drives the process of aging, if you will. And so in short, we have 37 trillion cells in the human body. And almost without exception, those 37 trillion cells go through the same life cycle. So they're born, they grow, they mature, they replicate and divide, they acquire damage, they repair themselves, they acquire more damage, and eventually they just stop dividing, which is, again, that end stage. And usually cells will go through what's called apoptosis, which is programmed cell death. And apoptosis literally means, from a Latin word, it literally means to fall off. So like a leaf falling off of a tree during fall, or fruit falling off of a bush, or flowers falling off of a plant. So this is how the body regenerates and turns over tissues, through apoptosis. These cells literally dissolve into the extracellular matrix, and then their parts are recycled to build new cells. And so when cells acquire the ability to evade apoptosis, what happens is they persist. And as I mentioned, that is problematic. It's problematic from a couple different perspectives. Primarily, it's problematic because these cells take up space, and so they change the structure of your tissue. So if you have these cells, as an example, in your skin, these cells are non-functioning, but they're still present, so it presents as dryness, or reduced elasticity, or sagginess, or wrinkles. But it can also compromise tissue function, and it can decrease the performance of a specific tissue. So if you have senescent cells in the brain, for example, it can impact cognition, it can lead to brain fog, it can impair your ability to learn or to remember certain things. And so these cells end up sticking around the tissues really throughout the entire body. There's no tissue really that's untouched by these quote unquote zombie cells that are dead, but still persisting in the body. And it's interesting when you get into the literature, especially some of the lay literature around senescence, you'll notice that they refer to them as zombie cells. And again, they're almost like zombies in a movie. They're dead, but they don't die. And what happens is they try to convert all of the neighboring cells into senescent cells themselves. And so it has this zombie-like effect. And these cells end up secreting these inflammatory chemicals that then really can change the microenvironment of tissues. And it can impair, again, the structure and the function of pretty much every tissue throughout the body.
So what causes one, I guess this is going to get into, senolytic therapy and kind of reversing this, but what causes someone to have those, that senescence or the zombie cells, to where their body isn't getting rid of those, versus somebody that is where it's working correctly? I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of things, but what kind of things are going to induce that senolytics?
Yeah, great question.
The senescence, rather, but
the senescence. Yep. So basically, these cells have a phenotype or an expression that's called a SCAP network. And that essentially is just this anti-apoptosis pathway that they upregulate certain proteins to shield themselves from apoptosis and immune surveillance. So we know that this upregulation of proteins occurs in a lot of these cells, and we know that these cells do accumulate in older individuals. Some of the thinking about why that might occur in older individuals is because older individuals have a weaker immune system. And so the immune system's not going in and deleting these cells, which they would naturally. And so we do see over time, there is a natural accumulation of senescent cells, almost in every person that we have found. And the science shows that, after the age of 60, it's believed that about 10% of tissues have markers of senescence. And so that can lead to a whole number of different consequences: loss of function, loss of stress resistance, an inability to recover from injury, an inability to learn new things, chronic low-grade inflammation because they're secreting those inflammatory chemicals. And so overall, we just see a loss of youthfulness over time.
And so some of that can't be reversed, I'm sure. But I'm sure there are things, environmental, nutritionally, or whatever, that kind of expedites this or these senescent cells. Can you maybe name a few of the big ones that might do that?
Yeah, well, it's worth mentioning the concept of autophagy, and this is a pretty trendy concept right now in the field of anti-aging medicine. And autophagy is this process by which a cell repairs itself. So again, it comes from Latin, and it just means self-eating. And so every cell, when it gets damaged, it will repair itself if autophagy is in place. And so there is ways to stimulate that autophagy process to quote unquote prevent or minimize a cell moving into senescence. One of the most common ways is through fasting. And we know that fasting, or a fasting mimicking diet, which is a low calorie diet, can really promote autophagy in the body and improve that repair process so that cells don't get into that senescent phase. And so that's some of the thinking. And then on the tail end, there are concepts known as senolytics that can help eliminate that. And so senolytics are a whole new field that's emerging right now in aging medicine that I think is absolutely fascinating. There's so much promise and potential for these to really go in and target the aging process itself, and really go at it from a root cause mechanism. I know that a lot of people talk about root cause, but the thing that I love about senolytics is because they're not addressing these downstream manifestations of aging, that we see in a clinical setting. They're actually going in and they're addressing or targeting these upstream processes, namely senescence, that influences everything downstream. And so if you can address that upstream cause, it can have compounding effects throughout the entire body, which is kind of amazing. And so for this reason, I think a lot of money right now is being pumped into this field of senolytics to help facilitate the removal of these senescent cells from the body.
Yeah. Talk about that a little bit more as far as what's available today as far as senolytics. I know there's some supplements and stuff that are out there. You mentioned fasting and stuff. So what are talk about just some of the available senolytics that are available today.
Yeah. So getting back at Latin, I know I've been mentioning a bunch of Latin words today, but senolytic comes from two Latin words: senex, which means to grow old, and lysis, which means to destroy or remove. And so a senolytic really is any substance, natural or pharmaceutical, that helps the body eliminate senescent cells. And so they were discovered really recently. There was an article in 2015 where scientists combined quercetin and dasatinib, which is an anti-cancer drug, and they gave it to mice. And they discovered that not only did it help remove senescent cells within those mice, but it actually improved youthful function on many different levels. And so that really opened the eyes of a lot of the aging scientists for this whole field. And so since 2015, there's been a whole onslaught of research looking at the different mechanisms of action, different compounds that have this ability to promote the elimination of these. And so it's a really ripe field right now. And I love it. I think it's so fascinating. I do believe, as I've said before, that it is the future of aging. And I think that if we can really get in there and understand the science a little bit more, I think it's going to have huge consequences for health span and lifespan in humans.
Okay. So you study this stuff, and so I always like asking people like yourself about their lifestyle as far as what they do on a day-to-day basis to whether it's help prevent senescence or slow down some of the other hallmarks of aging. So talk talk about that, if you will, as far as what your day to day looks like. I mean, you don't have to go into a lot of detail, but what a typical diet looks like for you. What's your exercise regimen? What's your fasting regimen? That type of stuff.
Yeah, I love talking about this stuff. I think it's so interesting to learn what a lot of the big minds are doing to stay healthy. Right? You listen to like Tim Ferriss's podcast. I love hearing those little tools that he's using on a daily basis. So, so I appreciate you asking that question. I try to lead a pretty simple life. Overall, I used to do pretty extreme measures with like fasting and detox therapies, multiple 10-day silent meditation retreats, and such, and on and on. But I think over the years, I've simplified my routine. I try to follow the sun. So I try to wake up with the sun. I try to go to sleep fairly early, soon after the sun goes down. I really make sure that I'm well rested, which for me is the panacea for stress management. And critical. I mean, I need 8 hours of sleep. I'm always shocked when I hear people say, "Oh, I get 4 hours of sleep." I think that's okay for certain people. It's certainly not the case for me. I try to eat real food. My diet consists of an Ayurvedic diet, which is constitutionally or body type appropriate. So I'm a Vata body type, and so I try to eat foods that balance the Vata energy in my body. And then I just try to get outside in nature as much as I can. Mostly consists of walking. I'm an avid hiker. I'm an avid skier. And so I just try to get outside as much as I can, especially now that I'm working remote and I'm stuck in an office in my house on a daily basis. So I think that's critically important to get outside, get fresh air, get sunlight on a daily basis. So incredibly basic. I didn't say anything that was mind blowing, I'm sure, but I will say there are a couple tools that I do lean on a daily. I have been using ashwagandha for years. It literally got me through medical school, and I've continued to take 2 or 3 grams every single day. For me, that is powerful for stress management, for mood, for sleep, I mean, you name it, across the board. I'm a big advocate of ashwagandha for men and an herb called shatavari for women. And those are kind of the two major rasayanas or adaptogens that come from the Ayurvedic tradition. So I highly recommend to individuals find the right botanical that works for you, specifically an adaptogen that's body type appropriate, and stick with it on a daily basis. Take it in large doses and just lean on it. It's super nutritive. It feeds the adrenal glands. That's critically important for offsetting stress. And it just has huge implications for hormones and longevity in general. And so that's a huge part of what I do and what I lean on. I also am a huge fan of self-massage. And that comes again from the Ayurvedic tradition. It's a term called abhyanga. And they recommend doing these body type appropriate oils on a daily basis before you take your shower. So just a simple 3 to 5 minute massage just to nourish the body, nourish all of those tissues. And I think of the body as a piece of leather. If you left that piece of leather out in the sunshine, exposed to the elements day in and day out, that piece of leather slowly would degrade and fall apart. But if you keep that piece of leather oiled, it can withstand all of the elements for a very, very, very long time. And that's kind of the thinking. And so Ayurveda really highly recommends abhyanga self-massage every day for that purpose, just to maintain strength and vitality and resilience in the tissues. And so, that's it. And then the other cornerstone I would say is my meditation practice. Meditation for me is just a really excellent way to start my day and end my day.
Okay. So you didn't mention a whole lot of supplements there. So you said your regimen is pretty simple. That's in stark contrast with like Dr. Kaufman, who I've had on the show. And, she went through her regimen, which I think overwhelmed a lot of people. She's on, I don't remember. I lost count of them, but any other supplements for you? I mean,
Well, yeah. Um, we recently at Neurohacker just launched Qualia Senolytic. And I have been taking this now 4 rounds. Absolutely love the product. I've been recommending it to my parents who are aging, to friends, family. It's an amazing product, super cutting edge in the field of senescence. And so I've been leaning on that product as well. And that's not an everyday product. It's really akin to like a water fast or a detox protocol. And so in the studies right now for senolytics, they're just doing what's called intermittent dosing, or what's called hit and run dosing. And so they do big doses of these senolytic compounds over the course of 2 or 3 days, and then they stop and they let the body just recover and repair over the course of several weeks. And so Qualia Senolytic is no different. It is meant to be a 2 day per month protocol. So we do 6 capsules on day 1. We do 6 capsules on day 2, and then you give it a rest for 4 weeks, and you let the supplement and you let the compounds work to support the body in eliminating senescent cells. And so that's had profound effects overall. I mean, I'm not over the age of 60. I'm barely over the age of 40. But still, we do accumulate these senescent cells over time. And so even if you're young, I think it's a good idea to start doing these things just as a maintenance or a preventive protocol.
okay. Well, you kind of mentioned it here. Talk about Neurohacker Collective and what that is, and then kind of how you got involved in that. And then also, is that the same thing as the neurohacker.com? That's the website that you have your supplements and stuff. So talk about how you got involved in that.
Yeah. So right now I oversee all the product development. I've been working with them for a little less than 2 years. I have admired the company for years. They've been around since 2015, I believe, maybe 2016. But they're a direct-to-consumer company. They focus on nootropic products and anti-aging products. They do a variety of other products too, but they're really well known for a product called Qualia Mind. And Qualia Life, and those are 2 kind of incredibly complex, super efficacious products that I've admired from afar. So, since moving in and overseeing product development, we've created a lot of different products in different categories as well. But what I like about Neurohacker Collective, and why I think the company stands apart from a lot of other dietary supplement companies, is because it is truly a collective. There's a lot of incredible minds that work from the company. We have doctors, we have scientists, we have creatives, technologists, academics, on and on and on. People are all coming together and bringing their ideas together. And it's a science-first company, which I love. We spend an exorbitant amount of money and time in the R&D phase developing these products, to ensure that they're tolerable and efficacious and very different than anything that's available out in the marketplace presently. One of, I think, my pride points for the company is that we run human studies on all of our products before they go to market. So we don't really rely on the science that's available on the individual ingredients. We really rely on the science that we put in place on a finished product. And we make sure that the product does what we expect it to do before we launch it into the marketplace.
Okay. So we talked a little bit about the supplementation as far as how to, I guess, slow down the senescence. What are give us some other maybe kind of lifestyle tips that we can do? I mean, you mentioned the importance of sleeping, and my listeners, I'm sure, know to try and decrease inflammation and all that. But anything else you can throw out there as far as just some lifestyle tips as it pertains to senescence?
It's still early days, and we're still learning what does and doesn't increase the senescent cell clearance. But right now, the thinking is that exercise is probably number one. It's probably only mildly senolytic. But we know that there are human studies that shows that it does reduce the biomarkers of senescent cell burden. And so I think it's incredibly beneficial to make sure that we are exercising on a daily basis. The key is not to over-exercise, because over-exercising can really suppress the immune system response, which again is critically important for getting rid of these senescent cells overall. So, brisk walking, yoga, weightlifting, these things are really important, but make sure that you're getting the rest in between as well. I kind of alluded to it earlier, but a fasting mimicking diet. Not a lot of science to support this yet, but a lot of the big minds that are in the area of cell senescence do believe that fasting can really help to prime those senescent cells for elimination from the body. And then, of course, immune support, critically important. I think everybody now is starting to pay more attention to their immune system really than ever before. But it is the immune system that detects and eliminates those short-term senescent cells from the body. So there's a lot that can be done there. I'm a huge fan of beta glucan. It's a polysaccharide that comes from the cell walls of cereals, bacterial, and mushrooms. And so in part, that's why medicinal mushrooms are so powerful, is because they give you those beta glucans that are often thought of as coffee for the immune system. They really just wake up and prime the immune system overall. So I'm a big fan for that. You can get that as mushroom extracts or as purified beta glucan. Also a huge fan of vitamin D3, zinc, black garlic, of course, probiotics. There's a number of different things you can do to support your immune system on a daily basis. And then, lastly, I'll just mention just supporting healthy blood sugar levels seems to be critically important in this area. We know that hyperglycemia can promote senescence. We're not exactly sure why, but it does. And so making sure that you're balancing your blood sugar on a daily basis is critically important. So that would be as simple as avoiding those fast sugars, which are refined sugars, making sure that you're including plenty of protein and fat, especially in conjunction with anything that's a carb, to make sure that you're slowing down the release of that sugar into the body. And then you can get, really targeted nutrients in your diet as well, such as chromium and white mulberry.
Okay, very good. You said you don't really fast as much anymore. So to talk about that, how come you don't do that?
Well, so when you get into the Ayurvedic philosophy, if you're a Vata body type, it's not really ideal to fast. Vatas lack the fire, the earth, the water elements. And so if you're depleting more of those physical elements from the body, you're only going to create more Vata and more problems in the body. So fasting is not ideal from a Vata standpoint. Ayurveda would recommend, in place of that, just really simplifying your diet. They recommend doing a mono diet. And kind of the king of all mono diets would be a food called khichdi or khichdi. It's pronounced both ways, and it's kind of the macaroni and cheese of India. Really nourishing and overall just pretty simple, creamy. It's based in rice, mung beans, vegetables, select spices, and lots of ghee, which is clarified butter. Mm-hmm. And so the thinking there is that if you can just simplify your diet, eat a mono diet for 1 to 2 weeks, you can really reset the body and give it a chance to heal itself.
Interesting. Okay. Well, very good. Well, as we wrap up here, I guess anything else that you want to throw out there before I kind of start wrapping up that I didn't ask you?
Yeah, I don't think so. It's hard to relay how exciting the field of senescence really is. And I know I'm not doing it service, but it really is an incredibly exciting field. And it is early days. So people are starting to hear about it little by little, but I think you will be hearing about it, no doubt, in the future. It is the future of aging. I think it has incredible promise and potential. And it's very tangible and very real. And so the reason that I like Senolytics is because it is at the edge of that aging fireball. And it's again, it's something that you can start using today to change your health. And so it's worth exploring more. Neurohacker has lots of articles on their website, all of the clinicals. It's worth checking out neurohacker.com, reading a little bit more there if you're interested, and then just reading more online as well. It's a brand new field. It's emerging, but I'm incredibly excited about it.
Okay, well, very nice. I will say, if people go to neurohacker.com and are interested in trying some of these supplements there, they are giving us a discount for the listeners. So type in FITRX, FITRX, no spaces, and you will get a discount. So appreciate that. Okay. Well, as we wrap up, I always ask my guest if they could give us one health tip that would make us healthier today. What would you say to that?
Oh boy, be mindful of your mindset. I think that's becoming more and more critically important. Take control of your mind. There's ways to do that, and ways to be less reactive. I think breathing exercises and meditation are primary. There's also a lot of supplementation, such as L-theanine and GABA, that can really help to just calm the mind overall. I think that's perhaps the most critical element in any health promotion protocol.
Okay. Well, very good. We mentioned the neurohacker.com. Any other places people can go to follow you?
Yeah. So Neurohacker, we're on every social media platform. So yeah, feel free to follow along. We also have our own podcast called Collective Insights, where we bring a lot of big minds and have some really amazing conversations there.
All right. Well, that's great. Well, appreciate you coming on. Appreciate all that information. And as always, appreciate everyone listening. We will talk to you next time. Thank you for listening to FitRx. I invite you to share this with friends and family. If you would like, you can check out our website at vibrantlifedc.com, or you can email me at drgreg@vibrantlifedc.com.